Do you think the US is actually going to default on its debt? That's what we're going to discuss here. It's important because we're seeing it coming up in the news every single day. This is front and center. My name is David Quintieri, and I have been looking into this information for well over a decade, bringing these videos to you each and every day. I do the boring stuff so you don't have to. What I want to look at here is the implications for you, the individual. What does it mean? You, your retirement account, your family, all of that we will discuss right here and now. You want to know what keeps US business leaders up at night? It's the idea of a catastrophic debt default. It's like a big red alarm bell ringing about just how much debt the country is dealing with and what could happen if they don't actually get it under control. We have seen this in the United States. Hyperinflations have actually occurred many years ago, and other countries we could see it going on right here and now. Debt is a problem at a certain point. Now, the United States has a very different circumstance with it because it's the monopoly, it's the reserve. A debt default like this could shake up the economy to its core. Imagine people losing faith in the financial system. Interest rates are skyrocketing and the financial markets are thrown into chaos. Yeah, it's not a pretty picture. Well, these business bigwigs are sweating over the damage that it could actually do to their companies, okay, their investment plans, and basically the whole business landscape. In all of the calls that I have seen, this has been the talk of the town, okay? All of these conference calls that they do, this has been the one. It's a massive wake-up call that the policymakers and everybody involved need to actually take into account and get the debt under control. But instead, what are they going to do? They're just going to raise the debt ceiling and kick the can down the road. I think that's really what's happening, okay? Because they're not going to get the sustainability of the budget happening. You know that. You know they're not going to get the debt down. You know that the economy can't be resilient as more and more debt picks up. You could see through these economies historically that when you encounter this high debt, a lot of money printing, things get very erratic. Now I want to talk about the implications here. I wanted to start with the implications while we'll look at internationally. I want to talk about domestic as well. We can see what happens beyond the borders of the United States. A catastrophic debt default in the US wouldn't be just the US's problem. Given how central the US is to the global economy and how intertwined it is with other countries, a default would send shockwaves around the world. I mean, just think about it. The US dollar. It's the reserve currency of the world. That would be like it's losing its mojo. This could cause global financial markets to stumble. International trade would literally become a roller coaster ride. There's international investors and businesses with lots of money tied up in the US. They would be in a world of uncertainty. This is going to affect investment decisions, the stability of the global markets as well. A US debt default could hit global economic growth, international financial institutions, and countries that rely on US trade and investment. It's a stark reminder of why countries should diversify their economic dependencies to brace for any potential problems. If you rely on one country, you're going to eventually, might take a year, it might take a decade, it might take 50 years, but eventually that becomes a problem. You want to diversify. And this goes for your investments as an individual, but internationally as well. There's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to have one partner, one friend, one ally. You can go out there and do business with everybody. That's okay. Well, I want to look at what's potential for you, the individual. Now think about this, okay? The fear of debt default. It's clear as day that the top dogs in US businesses are seriously worried about a catastrophic debt default. The fear speaks volumes about the size of the national debt and the potential fallout if things do go south. And you could see it right here. What is the national debt? Looking at that, $30 trillion plus. How in the world Is this ever going to be paid back? Well, I think it's pretty obvious that it will not be. What about the economic impact? Picture this. A major debt default could hit the economy like a ton of bricks. Confidence in the financial system could tank, interest rates could shoot through the roof, and financial markets would be thrown into disarray. It's not exactly a cheery outlook. And that's important because if it were to happen, which I don't think it will, but if it does, it causes chaos. Business concerns. These fears are not just about the numbers on a balance sheet, okay? Not just about that. They reflect real concerns about how a debt default could wreak havoc on the businesses, messing up their operations and future investment plans. The same exact thing with you. You go out there day to day, you make investment decisions all the time. Oh, I'm going to, renovate my home. Well, you assume that when you're doing that renovation, that home in that area, that street, that environment is going to stay reasonable for a period of time. I'm going to make this investment because I know it's going to pay off 10 years, 20 years down the road. But things could change very rapidly. Policy implications. It's pretty clear that those in the Congress, they need to step up their game, tackling the debt and actually make smart fiscal decisions, or else the economy is not going to remain steady. And we know that isn't going to happen, and in fact, it will be quite the opposite. What about the long-term planning? You can't just focus on short term. You got to focus on the actual fiscal sustainability, reducing the debt, and having resilience in the economy so that in the future you can withstand those shocks. And it's really unfortunate that it doesn't look like it will happen in this case here. And so that's really what this is all about. You can see how this could affect you, the individual, the businesses as well. And internationally, it would be a cluster, let's call it that, okay? Because what I can see here is that they will likely increase the debt ceiling. They're going to expand the debt, 31 trillion plus. They're going to, at some point have to decrease the interest rates, knowing that they can't not pay back. The interest rate is just quite frankly too high. And so we will see this going over and over and over again through these cycles, every time getting more and more violent. So you as the individual at home, you've got to be able to handle the swings that occur. How can you do that? Number one, you've got to diversify in your investments, also geographically. Because if you rely on your income, your business, everything that you have is in this one central area. Maybe you live in whatever, Idaho. Well, what happens if suddenly all of that which is around you gets turned upside down? A natural weather event, maybe it's an economic problem, governments, whatever. We can't rely on that. So we need to have that diversification, and maybe sometimes where you live isn't the right place, or where you do business isn't the right place, and we have to start asking those questions. If you found this informative, hit that thumbs up button, and I'll see you tomorrow.